various experts are trying to get their head around what's occurring here and whether indeed the shutdown or the lockdown did have an effect. But what will be worrying parents is how quickly these children are falling ill.
Indeed. I mean, most children who get in contact with this Group A strep have no or very few symptoms. But particularly if you've had influenza, you can go on to develop a range of quite severe diseases, and it can progress very rapidly, certainly when you get some of the more severe outcomes of this. So yes, yeah. It is a dreadful disease, but fortunately the more dreadful consequences are pretty uncommon.
And therein lies the difficulty. You indicated about flu and coughs and colds at this time of year. Antibiotics completely useless for that, and doctors have been reluctant to actually prescribe them because obviously it leads to more resistant strains of bacteria. So when does the doctor make the decision to lower the threshold, as they said, or even give these school children a precautionary dose of antibiotics?
Well, typically we wouldn't give precautionary antibiotics, except in very particular circumstances. Now, in general, with outbreaks of scarlet fever, we don't give preventative antibiotics to, say, other children in the class. But if in certain circumstances we've got a localized outbreak that's particularly severe or isn't going away, then those are the situations where currently we would consider giving antibiotics, but it's always a difficult decision because, giving antibiotics unnecessarily can do more harm than good. So you've got to be sure that actually it's worthwhile and it's important and it's going to
difficult
do
question.
what you want it to do without causing further problems.
Yeah, therefore a difficult question. What sort of weapons do we have at our disposal? Because about 9 children now have died, where we assume that antibiotics are a really quick and useful tool to actually clobber this infection. Yeah. It obviously does not appear to have worked in those
penicillin is still
circumstances.
very effective against Group A streps. I think the first thing is that we too tend to see surges of scarlet fever and invasive streptococcal infections, often lagging a week or so behind influenza infections. So the first thing is that make sure if your child is offered influenza vaccine, take that, because that's probably the single most important thing you can do to reduce the risk. The second thing is that if your child is ill with a sore throat, if they're not getting better, if they've got a high temperature, particularly, say, over 39 in an older child, over 38 degrees in a child under 3, then contact NHS 111 or your GP. If your child's struggling to stay awake, also contact your GP. But if your child is having difficulty breathing, if they've got a blue tinge on their skin, on their tongue or their lips, or if you're finding it difficult to wake them or they're really floppy, that's a medical emergency and they need to get to A&E as fast as you possibly can, either by phoning 999 or, if it's quicker, to take them in yourself to A&E. And that's the most important thing that you can do, really.
Got it. OK, thank you very much indeed, Paul Hunter, Professor of Medicine at the University of East Anglia.